Yes, hello, we're here at the Aviva Stadium. We are being hosted by DHL, sponsors of the Rugby World Cup, in the presence as well of the William Webb Ellis Trophy, and two legends of the Irish game as well, and Conor O'Shea and Andrew Trimble. Lads, what a year we have in store. Conor, yourself, maybe in a more professional capacity, myself and Andrew can speculate as we wish on what might happen over the next 12 months. Where are Italy now before a Six Nations and a World Cup? How are you feeling about things?
I'm feeling pretty positive. I feel that we've made a lot of improvements, that we're a heck of a lot better than we have been, but the standard, the level, and Andrew will say, of every squad of this year's Six Nations is through the roof. It's probably the highest level that we've seen from all sides. You look at Scotland, you look at Wales, unbeaten for 10 games, you look at Ireland, number 2 in the world, pushing number 1, England recovering form, France, they may lose to Fiji, but they could beat anyone the following day. So we're positive where we're going, but we know the scale of the challenge, and then the World Cup will be special.
So where does the Six Nations come in terms of priorities in a World Cup year in comparison to how it may look on your horizon in other seasons?
No, your next game is the biggest game, and we have Scotland in the first game, and we're not looking past that because we have to create a habit in terms of the level of performance we have. And we came so close to turning Scotland over in last year's Six Nations. Probably, a bounce of a ball here and there decided that game, and Greg Laidlaw kicks the penalty in the last minute of the game to win it for Scotland. So we just have to look and worry about the level of performance and the intensity we bring to matches. And if we play like we did against Australia, Georgia, Japan, Scotland, those sort of games, we'll be more than competitive. And then you come down to little moments in games that need to go your way. So we'll go in positive, we'll go in preparing to win, but we'll also go in realistic.
Andrew, as a player, you were involved in 3 World Cup cycles. You played in 2 World Cups. When you get into this time of year, is there a difference in the Six Nations in a World Cup season? Or as Conor says, every Six Nations championship stands on its own merits and it doesn't really matter what's coming down the track?
Yeah, I think that was the party line. Next game, the Six Nations is enormous, and it always was for us. I think it's slightly less enormous for this Ireland side because we're talking about them potentially winning a World Cup, and they're are one of the favourites, and it's realistic that could happen. And I think we're still getting used to that concept. That's still a foreign concept to us. Not to be humble, talk about the All Blacks, talk about England, and the fact that that's on the horizon. I think no matter what the players say, they're going to say the party line. We're looking at Six Nations. First game of Six Nations is England, and that's enormous. But there's no way some of those lads won't be looking forward to the World Cup.
Does a detailed man like Joe Schmidt, Conor, does he keep an eye out and an ear out for any kind of talk amongst the players in that regard? He wants to focus on the next game.
Well, I think Andrew will be able to know because he's actually been coached by him, but knowing what he would probably drive would be that if you don't perform, and this is the message here, if you don't perform, you won't be there. And the competition, the depth breeds competition, and if you have challenge in every position, which Ireland are beginning to get in almost every position, yes, there are some untouchables in terms of ultimately trying to win for Ireland the World Cup. But there's so much competition. If you're off your game, Joe is ruthless. So that'll be, yes, I probably agree with Andrew in the sense of people are looking ahead, of course, it's human nature. But Joe will be saying, you can look ahead. If you don't focus on your job, you won't be there.
Yeah, we're probably saying the same thing in different ways. The boys will be looking, that's the big motivation is the World Cup, because there's a chance of winning the World Cup. But that kind of motivation manifests itself in the England game, because if you don't perform, then you don't get a chance to, that's the big dream, and you don't get a chance at it.
Ireland obviously are favourites for this Six Nations Championship as they look to build on that Grand Slam. That's fair enough from your point of view? They are the standout team right now?
They're the standout. I'm not going to talk about Italy because we weren't going to try and bring to the Six Nations, but when you look at all the other sides, you look at Wales, you look at their draw for this particular Six Nations and who they have at home. They're unbeaten in 10 international matches. That it takes some going. So they're going to be a force to be reckoned with. Scotland have improved beyond recognition. I just think every game is so big. Will there be a Grand Slam this year? When you look at the depth of competition and how tight, if someone wins a Grand Slam this year, it will be an unbelievable achievement because I just can't see everyone not winning and getting a big scalp. And but it's hard to call because of the standard and the level. I don't think I've ever seen a 5 or 6 Nations championship with the level of performance of all teams being where it's at the moment. It's incredible.
And Andrew, traditionally we would have looked on the odd years as being Ireland's best chance to win a Six Nations championship when we have the English and the French at home, whereas last year we went away and won the Grand Slam. How do you see this year with the huge game obviously first up that Saturday afternoon against England?
Yeah, that's enormous, and as you say, these were always the years where we thought we had a chance. That's kind of turned on its head now when you look at some of the performances of Scotland and Wales, the form Wales are in at the minute, and then going to Rome's a tough gig as well. So I think that's just on its head, and that's a thing of the past. Looking to every other year, they proved that they can do it last year, and this year there's just so much competition, and there's going to be a couple upsets, as Conor says. It's very unlikely that someone's going to win a Grand Slam this year, because maintaining that level of performance week in, week out, and the level of intensity that they're going to be playing against in the Six Nations everywhere, every single week, is great. We're being spoiled as viewers, as rugby supporters. We're talking about the World Cup, but you know, we're being spoiled by Six Nations as well.
When we look at that first game, Conor, England probably a bit sore. We snatched the Grand Slam off them 2 years ago here when they were preparing to party. Then we go and get the job done ourselves on English soil last year. So they probably feel they've got 1 or 2 scores to settle.
Yeah, and it's like the next couple of weeks of Heineken Cup matches, you know, in terms of injuries to key players will be key. But even Apollo is just coming back into, you know, played his first game last week. Will get 3 games under his belt before he gets into, and he is so key to that England team. And Johnny May's in good form. They've got good players all around, and any team, we talk about Johnny Sexton in Ireland, Owen Farrell is the same. This driven competitor that makes people around him play better and drive to be better. So, you know, England had a dip last year post lines, which everyone put to one side and said, it's not. It's historically, you look at the team that provides the most to the lines probably suffers. If they get their players fitting on a pitch, they're going to be, you know, very, very. I mean, what a game to start. I'll be focusing on Scotland and Murrayfield as opposed to Ireland versus England. But what a game for. There's a bit of a fight in the O'Shea household in Dublin to try and get the tickets for that one. The 2 tickets you get as an ex-international.
I should think the O'Sheas would probably be okay when it comes to the tickets. Andrew, what was your best England-Ireland memory? Because you're involved in a couple of huge days where an Irish team walked off the better of the game.
Yeah, a few big ones. Croke Park was obviously a big one. 2006, Shane Horgan, the reach he was standing in the 22 and he managed to score in the corner.
Paddy's Day.
On Paddy's Day, yeah. So yeah, a few big ones.
Conor, you maybe didn't have as much success against England, but I always remember '94. We hadn't beaten them in 12 years, and that brilliant Simon Gagan try in the corner. Was that the standout memory for you?
I ran an amazing dummy line, never touched the ball. It was the only reason Simon Gagan scored the try. The coach was making sure I didn't touch the ball. It was the way we scored, and it's funny being out on the pitch there today and walking around the stadium and thinking back to, I think it was '93, and the wind just whipping down. It was like, I remember taking a ball in the middle of the pitch, not even being able to get the ball to touch, like this hurricane blowing down the pitch, and some incredible memories. But at Twickenham in '94, you know, Andrew's played there and won in Twickenham, and it's a special place when you do it for the Irish people in London, because there's so many and they can go into their offices with that bit of spring in their step. But this game to start the Six Nations here is, I mean, we were talking about the physicality of the game now compared to even a year ago. But that game will, I think, bring it to a different level. It'll be ferocious.
Conor mentioned Wales, and not only from the Six Nations point of view, but from the World Cup, no one really seems to be talking about them, and personally that would worry me. We have 6 days between the French game and the Welsh game. That ultimately is where this championship is going to be decided. Would that worry you?
Yeah, absolutely. Wales in the Six Nations always worries me, and typically Welsh side wouldn't perform that well in autumn, and then they just hit their straps in the Six Nations, and they seem to be performing well in the autumn, and if they continue that momentum going, I think they're going to be really, really tough for Ireland. Hindsight
is a wonderful thing, Conor, and in World Cup cycles gone by, we've read an awful lot into the Six Nations. Ireland only need to look at what happened in 2007 to realise that often there's absolutely no correlation between the two. From your experience, can you draw any conclusions from a Six Nations championship heading into a World Cup?
Well, yes, but the biggest thing in sport is getting your best players on the pitch, and Ireland have unrivaled depth than in their history, but there are still some people that, I'm not talking about winning the matches to get to probably a semi-final in this, but if Ireland are going to win, that they want their untouchables on the pitch in the big games. Yes, we have depth, but you want Johnny Sexton, you want Conor Murray, you want those guys, your Peter O'Mahony's, your Rory Best, and Rory Best, not alone is he playing great rugby at the end of his career, he's glue in that team, and you want them on the pitch. Like in Ireland 4 years ago, you watched that French game, everyone went mad, brilliant win. But I was looking at it going, we've lost O'Connell, we lost the guys who were actually going to win the tournament for us. That's going to be the look that you needed. We get our best team on the pitch, we in Ireland this time, not Italy. And anything is possible. And my dream is we're seeing Ireland in a quarter-final in the World Cup, and it's Italy that's playing them.
Yeah, look, that's the way it's looking, isn't it? If you guys could pull off a shock against South Africa or New Zealand, really what we need, Andrew, is DHL to package up Tyke Furlong, Conor Murray and Johnny Sexton, parcel them off for 6 or 7 months and bring them out fresh for the World Cup, because as much as we have improved on the depth that was not there in that Argentina quarter-final, we are still 2 or 3 bad injuries away from having a real problem, are we?
I don't know if we are, because we beat the All Blacks without Murray. Sexton's obviously the one. If you lose Sexton, as Leinster are going to probably learn this weekend, then they have to dig deep, and it's a big ask for whoever comes in there. But yeah, I think we're almost getting a little bit smug with our mind, the strength and depth in Ireland, and it's a really luxurious place to be. And I actually thought you were going to say there, why don't we just parcel the boys up, keep them fresh for the knockout stages in the World Cup, and then keep them safe for the semi-final. But it's at that stage you bring guys in, and there's so much strength and guys coming in and pushing them, and I think that's going to enhance the performance of the first liners as well.
And you look at Scotland in the pool for Ireland. You look at Samoa in a World Cup are different. Full stop, they're different because all their players become available. They get preparation time like they've never got prepared before. I'm not saying Ireland don't win and win comfortably, but they'll be given a physical test, and it's how you get through these. And tournaments is not like the Six Nations at 2. It's a week off. You can plan, you can phase. This is, for us, we play 2 games in 4 days at the start. It's not like any normal competition. So the attrition rate, the mental state, how you get yourself, it's completely different. So it's just a brilliant year. I love rugby. I mean, it'd be sometimes nice to maybe sitting down with Andrew and having a look at it and enjoying it with a beer. But for anyone out there who just loves rugby, the Six Nations will be incredible. The World Cup will be very, very special.
We talk about the pool stages so rarely, Andrew. We are almost, as you say, bringing a certain level of smugness into this World Cup that we're guaranteed a place in the quarterfinals. Is it a good thing or a bad thing that on paper the 2 toughest tests, the Scots and the Japanese, are first up, that we need to be ready from the opening game, not like 07 where we had Namibia and Georgia? We never really warmed to the task, but that would have been the thought process at the time. Yeah,
I think so. Yeah, 07 is a good example of that. Kind of just building up and just waiting for something to happen that never actually happened. But I think this Ireland side we've been like typically Irish and humble and kind of self-deprecating and deprecating, and we've kind of just said, oh no, but the All Blacks are the All Blacks and England will come good, and we kind of talk about how that's going to be the case. But then Ireland went to Twickenham, hammered them out the gate. Then they went to Australia, won a test series over there. Then they beat the All Blacks in Dublin, and eventually we have to go, right, listen, we need to really back this Irish side. We need to have a lot of confidence, and now, not smugness, let's not get carried away, but we need to know they've backed it up so many times now. They're going to do something special at the World Cup if everything goes to plan, and they've mitigated so much risk as well, because guys get injured and it's not the end of the world anymore, and we can cope with that, and that just means we can buy into that confidence even more, I think.
But the margins at this level of the game, and you think back to that All Blacks game, and out there, you think of Peter O'Mahony stretching his arm across. You talked about Shane Horgan's arms, stopping a try from a kick through into the corner. You think of Bowden Barrett and a show and go, and he's just dragged by his coattails. And these little margins in the game in terms of the energy and the momentum. So all those great wins, and they are it's an amazing role that Irish rugby is on in these big games, and that's what you're going to look for. How can you work to make those small moments go your way? And that will be the deciding moment. You give the All Blacks energy, you give Scotland energy, they become a different team, and that's what Joe will just be. It's what he's very special at. And I sat down after our game last year and debriefed the game with him in Dublin the day after it. We sat in a coffee shop and asked him, and he's an incredible mind in rugby, and I don't think he'll let this Irish team slip. But the margins at this level are tiny.
So it's margins, though. It's margins with the All Blacks.
Absolutely.
Which is fine.
Absolutely.
If you're kind of just nip tuck with the All Blacks coming to the last 5 minutes, that would keep all Irish rugby supporters very, very happy. If we get beat by the All Blacks in the final, I think we would take that. But the fact that we go to Twickenham and we were head and shoulders better than them, I just think it shows there's fine margins right at that top level. But I think Ireland, who typically in the past, traditionally, our competitors have been England, France, I just think we're so much better than them.
Obviously, we'd love Ireland to be coming back from Japan with this trophy in the autumn, but New Zealand are still the favourites, and they're going for the 3 in a row. seldom have they had their shortcomings exposed so much in the final 12 months of a World Cup cycle. They often go into the tournament on the crest of a wave, and in past World Cups they've fallen down on that, particularly against the French. They've had a year now, haven't they, to figure out what's going wrong, why it's going wrong, and to make those fixes.
Yeah, well, arguably then, are Ireland following that pattern that used to be the All Blacks? Now we're going in there a little bit ahead of ourselves, thinking about winning a World Cup, and as Conor says, the margins are so fine, but it probably suits the All Blacks to just be under the radar a little bit. Now, I'm not saying they would have been happy with losing to Ireland in Dublin. Of course not.
But there's a time and a place to lose to Ireland in Dublin, isn't there?
Yeah, I think so. And there was, in the run-up to that game, there were a few people thinking, from an Irish point of view, a tactical loss mightn't be the end of the world. Just to get under the radar a little bit, not draw too much attention to ourselves. And the All Blacks are in that luxurious position. Now, they don't need the underdogs tag that we needed in the past. Arguably, we don't need it anymore either. But yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they cope with that.
If it's not New Zealand and it's not Ireland, Conor, who's next in your mind?
The trouble is you can take your pick in terms of who could turn up on the day. Wales, you talked about. Australia, everyone writes off and says, look where they are, but you look at the quality of player they have, and when you deal at this level, you deal in such small moments in matches that can just reignite the confidence of a team. You look at South Africa, who will be hoping to, do a surprise like Japan within the pool, but you look at what they're doing and what Rassie Erasmus has done, and you get momentum within a tournament and feel good. So there are the standout teams, the two. I don't think England and Wales are far behind, and it's just making sure that you don't slip up on a banana skin. So Ireland have great plans. I'm not saying Scotland's a banana skin. Lose to Scotland, All Blacks quarter final. Take your pick.
Yeah.
That's what's going to make it great. Lots of hope.
There is no margin for error. Finally, Andrew, once we get through the World Cup in Japan, we then have to start thinking about life after Joe.
Once we win the World Cup, then.
Right, well, fair enough.
Yeah.
Life after Joe will be life with Andy. How do you see it?
I think, obviously, it's a tough gig to follow. I think the country will go into mourning for a few weeks to get over the passing of Joe, and then we'll have to get on with it. But Andy Farrell is unbelievably capable. He's a really astute kind of scholar of the game. He understands the game intimately. He spent a lot of time with Joe and gleaned a lot of that experience as well. And now, very, very different types of approach, but certainly could be very, very successful. Very capable. If he gets the right team around him, we could kick on from here and win the next World Cup.
He's the guy who has to follow the Bob Paisley's, Alex Ferguson's, Mick O'Dwyer's of this world, Conor. It's never an easy job, particularly if his predecessor has just won this thing.
It's an easy job if you win, and if you don't win, if you don't have success, everyone says, well, it would have been different under and it's someone has to do it. But I think Andrew's hit the nail. He's someone goes back a long time, or just when you were talking about him there, and I had to go into the England team before Ireland played England in Croke Park all those years ago, and Brian Ashton asked me to speak about the importance of Croke Park, and one player in that room came up to me afterwards after I'd spoken, and I gave them some photocopies from a book that I'd read, and one player came up to ask more, and it was Andy Farrell. So he's a scholar. He understands a lot, and he's a deep thinker about the game. He's unbelievably passionate and a real orator in what he does. But it's different being the boss. It's and he'll have to learn, but you have to start somewhere. So I don't think it's a bit like the boot room. Someone who's worked with Joe going in there and taking over, and we'll see what happens. But there's a few months left of Joe yet. Yeah,
he's balanced as well, though he knows the game intimately. He can get the best out of his players, but he's quite laid back as well, and he creates a good environment around the place as well, and that balance, I think, works quite well.
Andrew, Conor, thanks so much. We know that DHL will be there. We know Ireland and Italy will be there. Let's hope this trophy's coming back as well in the autumn.